People to People TV.
See thesuppressedmovie.com. Leading up to the war in Iraq, every man, woman, and child watched 100,000 repetitive images of the towers collapsing. Will there be psychological side effects?
Take that camera out of here and beat it, huh? Get out.
Florida-based American media was sent highly sophisticated weaponized anthrax.
Outside of their networks, you'll hear them talking about it. Dan Rather went on the BBC in England. He said, you know, I self-censored myself after 9/11. We were all terrified that we would be attacked. He never said that, you know, in America. It was page one in every newspaper in Britain. American news anchor admits censorship. In the U.S., it got a paragraph in the calendar section of the LA Times.
You're watching bad TV. Who do you think won the presidential election of 2000?
Who was? I have no idea.
Was there an election in 2000?
Was there an election in 2000?
No.
If you don't know that that election was fixed, and let me tell you, you don't have a brain in your head, that's for sure.
George Bush is truly my president. I support him.
I really don't know. I didn't vote, and I don't have cable, so I really don't know. I know that George Bush did, but yeah, don't really know.
Democracy will not be surrendered.
Let me in the door. I am voting today.
We have the technology. Yeah, I'm Ben Franklin. Founding father. Now, back in the 1780s, after we threw the British out, I was like a rock star. Look at me now. I'm all washed up. Nobody cares about freedom anymore. What do you think about computerized voting machines?
Well, we've got to do something in America to speed up the process and make it more accurate.
I feel that they're a way for the candidate to be able to cheat because there is no trail behind it, so there's no way of making it accountable.
I know a lot of computer experts. I live in Silicon Valley. We talk about electronic voting there. Nobody who knows anything about computers is supporting electronic voting.
Why wasn't CNN covering the electronic voting controversy? So 25,000 people wrote to Aaron Brown at CNN challenging him on this, and he got pissed off. How dare you idiots sending me the same email? You know, this is outrageous. This is terrible.
Saw a poll today showing that 80% of the country believes the president won the election in a fair vote. The other 20% write me.
And then we noticed suddenly more stories beginning to appear on CNN about electronic voting.
We have no reason to believe the election was not fair, but oddly, we have less than perfect confidence that the votes were counted accurately. No one, we suppose, expects 100% accuracy in such things, but how much error is too much error? And perhaps a better question still, will we ever know?
Some examples. In Franklin County, Indiana, a programming error was applying Democratic votes to the Libertarian Party. After a recount, the winner on election night is now the loser. In North Carolina, over 4,000 ballots are gone forever, lost when a voting machine passed its arbitrary limit. In South Florida, election officials were horrified to see vote totals start counting down after they hit 32,000. What is even more disturbing, a statistical study done at UC Berkeley indicates that there could have been similar counting problems in all Florida counties that use touchscreen voting machines.
Why do you think media has an amendment, a First Amendment guarantee protecting it from regulation? Because the founders believed that this was important. But freedom of the press does not belong to those who own the press. It belongs to all of us. It's important for all of us. And if we don't challenge the media system, if we don't take back the media system, democratize it, then we're going to find ourselves losing our democracy.
Bad TV. News alert when danger's all around. Danger, danger. We're there. When the world is spinning out of control. You will not question my authority. I am your television. You will obey me. Be afraid. Stay tuned for this news alert after a word from our sponsor.
Why will they not allow Rush Hold's bill to prevent ballot fraud to come to a vote?
In the United States Senate today, the Republican Party's in charge. Bill Frist can call up any bill he wants. That's the power. He won't bring up the voting bill.
Maybe Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist has a conflict of interest. Now, hey, come on, cut it out, you guys. I just read these stupid jokes. No more partisan bickering. There is only one issue, and that issue is the right to vote and have your vote counted in fair elections.
Gore won the election. As a matter of fact, I know he won the election. Popular vote. I mean, something went wrong there. I mean, this has never happened in the history of the United States.
I think that the welfare recipients and the hippies are complaining because we got somebody. I'm grateful that George Bush won the election. I think if Al Gore had have won, we would have really had a disastrous time when it come to 9/11 and a few other things that have happened to our people and our troops around the world.
The president was elected in the Supreme Court. That's not right.
I support the results of the election in 2000. I'm from Texas, and I support George W. Bush. He's a great guy, and he brought the country in a great way. Took care of us over in Iraq and Afghanistan, leading the country in the right direction, and we're lucky to have him.
He cheated, and I'm still cranky.
From what I read in the paper and heard on TV, they had so many people that couldn't read, understand, and what have you, and they voted for the wrong candidate and many things, and that's awful hard to understand.
No one explained to them that Katherine Harris actually stopped the vote count. No one explained to them that 180,000 votes were thrown in the garbage can that should have been counted. No one explained to them that, in fact, if you counted those votes, it was not close.
I really believe that Bush won fair and square, and if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't back him at all. But I truly believe that the election, and I don't think his brother played any role in him getting the votes in Florida.
What people don't realize is that 179,855 votes were never counted in the state of Florida. They were cast, not counted, thrown in the garbage, marked spoiled. Who cast those votes? 54%, and this is an official finding of the U.S. Civil Rights Commission, 54% of the ballots cast and thrown away were cast by African Americans.
No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
The way that you fix elections in America, especially if you don't want the Democrat to win, is to make sure that black folk don't have their ballots counted. And it's very easy to find them demographically because they're all consolidated into precincts, because we have an apartheid living structure in America that we don't like to talk about. We don't have racially mixed neighborhoods in almost anywhere in America. Okay? So therefore we have segregated voting. And You give different type of machinery, and that's how you pull it off. And computerization is the way to make that little system of Jim Crow vote counting really sing.
It is most important that we here in the land of the free, the home of the brave, assure that every person that gets out to vote, that his vote is counted.
The 1965 Voting Rights Act gave African Americans the right to vote, but didn't give them the right to have their vote counted.
Key provisions of the 1965 Voting Rights Act are set to expire in 2007.
We really do need the constitutionally federal protected right to vote. We should, in fact, have federal supervision over federal elections. We do not have, which people think we do not have the constitutional or federal protected right to vote. We deserve to move beyond just states' rights on national elections.
How can a state take away your right to vote in a national election?
Florida is one of only 7 states that permanently takes away the right to vote from all people with past felony convictions.
The state of Florida, under Katherine Harris's watch and Jeb Bush's watch, removed thousands and thousands of black people from the voter rolls. 90% of the people on this felon list, 94,000 names, were innocent people who had the right to vote, but most of them are black.
Florida's voting ban against people with past felonies dates back to the same time as poll taxes, literacy tests, and all the other mechanisms that were used to prevent African Americans from being able to vote after the end of slavery.
In Mobile, Alabama, I watched court proceedings where black defendants were offered a choice. The judge said, "It seems that you are unable to raise the bail set for you. You've been waiting for 5 months for this hearing. If you plead guilty today, I can cut you loose and you can have supper at your mama's house tonight. Or, if you like, I can set your trial date for 6 months from today. How do you plead?"
I didn't spend any time in jail, but I did over 4 years probation. I lost my rights to vote and all my civil liberties.
And those rights are lost for life unless the governor and his cabinet subsequently give those rights back.
I would urge President George W. Bush to extend presidential clemency to those millions of Americans being denied the right to vote in the 7 states that still enforce felon laws written in the 1800s.
I'm getting older and I sure would like to vote again.
Don't be misinformed. In most states, convicted felons can vote. Check the laws in your state.
Where have all the voters gone? They've gone to drinking everywhere. Look at the size of that bottle of beer.
From Texas. So this is Texas style.
What do you think of our president?
Oh, he's doing great.
You do? You think Bush is doing great?
Yes, nobody can do better than him.
They're from Texas. They drink big bottles of beer and they like Bush. Do you know anything about electronic voting machines?
Well, I've used them, but other than that, no. We had problems with the last election, and I see a repeat of the same thing possibly happening now.
I mean, after all, this is Decadent Weekend. It's always Decadent Weekend.
In New Orleans, 59 precincts were denied access to voting machines in an election that changed the Constitution of the state of Louisiana. Many of those disenfranchised neighborhoods are now slated for demolition in the aftermath of Katrina.
The prospect of poor people and minorities voting just gives you the bejeebies, doesn't it?
Election's over. We won.
How do you know that?
It's all over with the counting. We'll take care of the counting.
I was in one precinct in Liberty City and watched the tabulation there. There was a 32 vote difference between the number of people who signed in to vote and the number of votes actually cast.
There were far more people who signed in to vote than were votes actually cast on the machines. This was referred to as the lost vote rate.
There were some incidents of calibration issues where you press the button for one candidate and you get the other.
Is it the electronic voting system? Is there fraud? Is there ballot stuffing? Is there canceling of votes of voters, and especially in minority communities? We don't know what the answers are to these questions.
In certain areas, you have lines that stretch for 2, 5, 6 hours, where in other precincts, you don't have any lines at all because of the misallocation of voting machines. That's a deliberate attempt to suppress the vote in areas where you don't want too many voters to come out.
Look at what happened in Broward County. All those people stood in line yesterday. Now they have to go back because of some mysterious malfunction of the voting machine.
We had one precinct that opened an hour and 20 minutes late. And you have to understand, most people voted that first hour. There's the partisan challenger issue that's out there now, where partisan folks are choosing to challenge people's right to vote.
Who is this man? My first impression was law enforcement, perhaps a federal agent, or perhaps a retired federal agent. I also noticed that he was wearing a gray suit. The gray suit is a tradition in the FBI. He seems to be directing others in the crowd, including law enforcement. He has a credential that gains him access inside the polling place, so he could stand on the stairway and interfere with America's right to vote, in plain view of law enforcement and election board officials. Who issued his credential?
No, there's a problem that I don't have authority to talk to the media.
He's not authorized to speak to the media? Authorized by whom? Who does he work for? Election board? The state of Florida? The federal government? This man was also seen in other polling places around the city.
People get so wound up in wanting their candidate, their party to win, that there's all kinds of little tricks that are pulled, illegal campaigning, illegal donation. It doesn't matter. They'll do anything to try and get their party and their candidate in. And I know that there's ways you can control certain things, but as soon as you get that under control, a new one springs up. I'm getting to be an old man, and I've witnessed at least 50 years of this crap, and I see no end to it.
When the Ohio results were coming in, it's all Kerry ahead by 4 or 5%, and this was like at 7 o'clock Ohio time.
In Ohio, the exit poll showed a Kerry victory by 4.2%. President won by 2.5%. Exit polls are usually so precise, even on a state level, that it was virtually statistically impossible for them to have been so wrong.
They're all falling 5 to 15% outside the margin of error, which is statistically impossible.
And then in the next hour, we watched the counters roll off.
The CIA used to do this throughout the Third World in the 70s and 80s. We used computers to try and keep Marcos in power. When Aquino was running against him, we used computers to bring Noriega's people to power. We used to call these demonstration elections.
As we watch it right now, they're stealing the election.
In Gahanna, more than 4,000 votes were for Bush. Explain that to me when only 638 people voted.
When machines cast a negative 25 million votes in Mahoning County, that bears investigation.
This is about the future of democracy, and it is a critical emergency.
We are witnessing a crime against democracy.
Hey kids, what time is it? It's time to stand up for America. Join the Coalition for Democracy. People from every political party are working together to save their right to vote.
This system of 50 state, separate and unequal elections, 3,067 counties, 13,000 election administrations, must give way to the fulfillment of the American promise, which requires an amendment to the Constitution, affirming the individual right to vote, federally protected, and an even playing field for all Americans.
That is huge. We are at the early stages of a new generation democracy movement in this country.
No more partisan bickering. There is only one issue, and that issue is the right to vote and have your vote counted in fair elections.
When I vote, I want a paper trail.
Senators Clinton, Boxer, Kerry, and Lautenberg have introduced a far-reaching bill to require paper receipts, to provide remedies for long lines, and to stop partisan election officials. It is also their goal to institute a national holiday for voting. Yes, a National Voting Day. A holiday where Americans will cast their votes in national elections. No more confusing ballots. No more baseball ballots. No more invisible ballots. Vote in national elections on standardized paper ballots. Simplify the ballot. Only President, Vice President, House, and Senate.
Confusing.
We've always had idiots that couldn't vote. If we don't educate the voter before he gets in the booth, he's liable to write his own name on the bottom of the ticket.
Now your Election Day weather report. Ethnic cleansing of the voter rolls throughout the Deep South. And widespread voter fraud in Ohio and Florida.
Why would a politician spend 8 times as much for a machine that doesn't work as well? And the answer is because it may not work very well from the standpoint of democracy, but it works damn well from the standpoint of making sure those incumbents get reelected.
Electronic voting machines are imperfect technology that hides the evidence of its flaws. Whether you believe in fraud, conspiracy, or whether you own a computer at home and know that they're not perfect, you should be concerned.
So one of the things that many groups, including verifiedvoting.org, are urging is a policy where every place that electronic voting is being used, we make available paper ballots so that voters who don't want to use the voting machines can use the paper ballots. And the added bonus is if there's a problem with the voting machines, such as they're not booting up properly or there's a power failure, people will have the paper ballots available to use.
Who knows who controls the computer? And who knows where the control is coming from? Even though that we counted ballots the way they suggest, it looked kind of fishy to me, and so I still have no faith in computer voting.
The next step we have to do is to outlaw all forms of voting that don't result in a paper ballot that can be counted, recounted, and audited as necessary.
We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones who have to stand up and be the 21st century patriots.
We are a mighty coalition for democracy. Together, we can pressure our party leadership and elected officials and force this issue to the front burner. Join the online community. Go to seethesuppressedmovie.com, gregpalast.com, mediachannel.org, verifiedvoting.org, and moveon.org. Remember, always listen to Air America Radio. Better yet, buy a copy of Electile Dysfunction and give it as a gift to that guy that you don't agree with.
This movie's so good, I came back to the 1700s just to tell you about it.
Help us get the word out. Ask about becoming a retail distributor.
What's the point in voting if, our president has somebody over there pulling strings for him?
You just watched 100 Ways to Fix Elections. The reason people conspire to steal your vote from you is because the power of your vote is real. So, get involved. The people fighting to save democracy need you to back them up. So remember, vote. With your support, we can demand voter-verified paper trails, an open source code, and better yet, decertify paperless voting machines and remove them from the electoral process. You're watching bad TV. Democracy will not be surrendered.
Let me in the door. I am voting today.
We have the technology. seethesuppressedmovie.com.